Alrighty, so welcome back everyone to Video Game Development Episode 2, and in this episode we're going to be talking about putting our bones into our characters so that the bones can actually control them and move them around. So for most of you, if you've created a character that is as simple as this one, and it will be pretty straightforward and simple because all the body parts are disconnected anyways, but I just wanted to take a moment to show you some examples of some other characters that I've created. For example, in my recent game project here, you can see this is one of the characters that I created, and here's just a running animation that he has, and so you can see the bone system in him. He has 2 bones in his arm, 2 bones in his leg, and I call it more complex, but this is still extraordinarily simple in comparison to some of the stuff that goes on. But this is kind of just a little basic animation that you can see here, and some different keyframes on the character's animation, but we'll get to that in the next coming episodes. For now, we'll just stick with the bones. And also you can see here is one of the characters that I was talking about previously in class, if you were there. If not, obviously you won't know what this is, but these are some of the other basic characters, and this is basically what we'll be doing, where we just take our bones and we just put one for each of the legs, and one for the chest, one for each of the arms, and one for the head, of course. But eventually you should be able to do a little bit more complex stuff with more complex mesh, but of course this is still pretty basic low poly stuff, and as far as all that goes, it doesn't get much simpler than this sort of stuff that we're doing now. So anyways, going back to our character here, the first thing that we're going to want to do is spawn in a bone for our character. So we're going to start by pressing Shift A and going down to this little one right here that says armature and clicking single bone, and we spawn in our first bone. We're going to drag that right up into the center of his chest here, and it disappears in the mesh of his chest. So we're going to want to see that bone. So the first thing that we're going to do is pull open this window. If it is already, that's great. If not, then just grab this little thing and pull it open. And we're going to click on this little guy shape right here, and it says armature, and below this colors checkbox right here, you can see we have X-ray, and we're just going to check that so that we can see our bone through everything on X-ray mode. So the first thing that you need to know about a bone is basically the bone pivots from one point, and the other end moves freely. So the fat end is where the bone is rooted, and the the skinnier end here is where the bone will move. So if I were to take this bone here, hit tab and go into edit mode and press G, you can see that the little head here moves around, but the bottom stays, and that's how the bone is going to move inside of our character once it's made. So we need to keep that in mind to make sure that our bones are always facing the right way. So in edit mode, we have to make sure that we're in edit mode when we're doing this, otherwise the system won't work. If you just duplicate your bones like this and they're not actually attached, that won't work for this. So we need to make sure that we're doing this when the bone is in edit mode. So right click on your bone and click tab to go into edit mode, and I'm just going to make this one a little bit bigger, scale it up a little bit. And the first thing that I'm going to do is just duplicate this bone by pressing Shift D and dragging it upwards to the head. And I'm going to scale it down on the Z axis a little bit, just by pressing SZ there and making sure that it's placed nicely in the center of our head. And then I'm going to make some leg bones and some arm bones. So first I'm going to take this bone here, I'm going to duplicate it, I'm going to move it down until I see that Actually, I'll just move it down all the way. And then what I need to do is remember, if this is the side that's moving, we don't want our leg for this part to swing out this way. We want the foot to swing out and the hip to be rooted. So this bone is actually upside down right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this bone and I'm just going to take this end, move it up, and this end move it all the way down to where the foot will be. And this, I'm going to move it all the way up to where the hip bone will be, right about there. And I'm just going to take this bone and I'm going to hit G, move it on the y-axis about, I think it was 0.6 what we did last time, and yeah, that's perfect. So there we have our first leg bone. I'm going to take this bone, I'm going to hit Shift D to duplicate it, and right click to just put it back to where it was, and then I'm going to hit G, Y, and then negative 0.6, and you can see it brings it back to our center, and then I'm just going to do it again, G, Y, negative 0.6, and there we go, we have both of our leg bones in. And that looks pretty good to me. So I'm going to take both of these just by selecting them both by holding Shift and right clicking on them, and then press Shift D and just drag them up a little bit to about here or so. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this one and move it over to this arm by pressing G, Y, 0.9, and there we go, right in the arm. And same with this one, just right click, G, negative 0.9. Oops, forgot the Y, G, Y, negative 0.9. And there you go, you have both of your arm bones. And these seem a little bit tall, so I'm just going to shrink them down a little bit and make sure they fit in the arms nicely. And same with the leg. I may as well just shrink these down a little bit because why not? Just so that they fit in there nicely. And there we go, we have our bone system built. So that looks pretty good to me, so I'm just going to press A to select everything, just to make sure that it's all attached, and then just press Tab, and you can see, now if I right click on any of these bones inside the character here, it's they're all attached. And that's perfect because we need to make sure that our bones are attached in order for our character armature to work. So you can see if I just press G, I move it around, and our mesh is all attached, so just move it around. That's perfect because you can't actually group your bones like you can your mesh, so that's why you have to make sure that they're edited together in the first place. So now that I have our armature created, what we need to do is we need to make sure that our armature is the parent of our mesh. What we need to do is we need to right click on our mesh first. By just pressing A, we can unselect everything, and just holding shift, we're going to right click on our bones because we want to make sure our bones are the parent of our mesh here. But remember, you always have to select the parent the second. So we're going to right click on our person, then shift right click on our bones and hit Control P, and then it's going to say, would you like to set our parent to with automatic weights? And what that's going to do is it's going to automatically attach these bones to this mesh. So if we just right click on our bones, you can see it now. If I press G, it's going to move our mesh with it. And if you right click on our person and we press G, it's just going to move just the person. But the best way we can test out which bones control what is we're going to right click on our bones and we're going to press Control and Tab at the same time, and it's going to bring up this blue, what brings us into what's called pose mode. So now if you right click on any one of the bones and press G, you can see it just controls just that one part. Now it may be a little bit wonky if your bones were set up a little bit funny, but we can always fix that after with weight painting. But this is the basics of rigging our character. Another quick tip you might want to do is if you just press Control Tab to go back into object mode and regular tab to go back into edit mode, sometimes it's most convenient for our root bone or our center chest bone to be the bone which controls all the other bones. So right now if I move this bone, nothing moves with it. But if we want to move our character in animation, we don't want to move all of our bones individually. Sometimes it's easiest just to move one center bone. So what we're going to do is we're going to right click on all of the child bones, which is just the top one, and then holding shift, we're going to right click on all of them except for the center one. And then we're going to hold shift and right click on the center one last so that we have all of them selected. Now if we hit Control P and then we click keep offset, it's going to say, would you like to make the parent the center bone but keep the offset of the bones? So we're just going to click that, and you can see all these different lines come in. So now if we right click on this and move those lines, just stay where they are. But now if we just hit Tab and then hit Control Tab, now when we move this, it's going to move all the other bones with it. And that's perfect because then we can control our character just by this, and that's what we want for animating later on. And so that's the basics of just rigging your character, and that's perfect. That's exactly what we want to move on. So next episode we'll be able to start weight painting and then going on to animation. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys all next time.